What's up, guys? So as I was trying to construct the idea of what this video would solidify as an entire meaning, I stuck around the main concept, which is what I want to focus on, the entire balance of what the video would entail. I started with the self. How do we describe ourselves? Who are we as the individual? Because each person has their own inherent value, the own structure of who their being is, and what you've built yourself to be thus far. So do they, and so do they. There are individuals in this life who go through the exact same processes that you go through with the exact same values. And so knowing that you are just as important as the man next to you, you guys must have a central value that unites and solidifies the human condition as a whole. I discovered that to be love. So now, if we so choose it to be love, because we don't know for sure, it's a choice that we must dictate as the pinnacle of what our existence is meant for, because there's lots of things that you can choose as a substitute as to what that could be. That seems to be the most probable and optimal for your well-being. So in all of our existence, we have a higher pinnacle of existence, which is what love is, outside of the self. Our identity, all of our three-dimensional beings and existences that live within ourselves and other people that are unified by one concept, we have to extract ourselves before we can even reach the pinnacle, which is meaning. So now if we have some sort of meaning or value in our life that always represents ourself, because if we're ever questioned, if we're ever put into a test in life where we need to bring ourselves to the best foot forward of who we are and what we built ourselves to be, this is what's going to define the person that brings them forth every single time. Why and how do you get to decide what that meaning is? Your subconscious deems what is real. Anything that your subconscious plays as real will then in turn become your reality. So now we must extract that, of course. Your reality needs to be defined by something, because everything in this life has embodiment of properties that allows us to deem it as real. So therefore, what is the pinnacle of real? I define that as pain. I dare you as any individual out there to dispute or argue with the idea of pain. How can one not agree that pain is the one emotion, the one undergoing reality that we go through that you cannot argue with, that you cannot avoid, that you cannot live without? In all of its senses, no matter how selfish, no matter how arrogant you may seem to be, pain will always find a way into your life. And in that process of being in pain, you will always want to choose being out. There's never a time where you would ever choose to be in the position of pain rather than anything else most of the times. So if everything that we live for, experiences, reality, situations, people, if the baseline, if the default mode is pain, if the thing that we always extract value from, the pillar of our existence, the thing that extracts itself into any sort of meaning, anything that we deem as real, comes from the consumption of pain. Pain deems what our reality dictates itself to be, and that's where our meaning is, and that's where we find ourselves. But now our pinnacle, love. How do we deem and how do we choose love? Why isn't pain something that we can always strive for? Why is pain not something that we would always desire for? Why are we not choosing something like pain versus love? So we may question love, but indisputably agree upon pain. We always question love. Do I love the woman that I say I do? Do I love my family as much as I think I do? These are questions that we ask ourselves because love is undefined. Love is something that we undergo through an emotion sense, but it's not something that we can just quantify in the reality. Pain, although, we can give scales to pain. We can give scales to physical pain, emotional pain, trauma pain. There's levels to it. But the level of love is always in question. It's always, maybe I love you. But even the times that you're so solidified, your partner for life that you love indefinitely, that is the pinnacle of love. That is the highest form of love, knowing that your partner for the rest of your life is going to be the person that you fall in love with for the rest of your life. That is the pinnacle of what your existence is for, because now every single thing you've ever gone through in life is always going to be subordinate to it. It's always going to be below it. That will always come first, no matter what. You cannot choose otherwise now. Once you have developed that sense of reality, nothing will ever choose. And now you may now say that you are brainwashed. You may say that this is now some sort of false reality, and now you cannot avoid because now you're living a false world. That love is just distracting you from the real purposes of life. But I guarantee you, live every sort of life over any time span, over many years, you will always come to the conclusion that love is always something worth fighting for, the thing worth fighting for. So now back to our point about but why do we question it? Why do we question love sometimes? Well, because it comes with pain. So now we have to understand that pain is above love. So if love is our pinnacle, if love is something that is defining of what is everything worth fighting for, How can pain be above something like that? Why would we want to choose pain? Why would we want to be striving for something so much that provides so much anguish and tiresome and worrisome and fear and all the horrible thoughts that can come from pain? Why would we want to be pursuing something like that? But that's not the case. We pursue love, pursue what's best for us and for those around us. Because we are all unified as individuals on this planet, defined by something, unified by something. And that's what I believe it to be. But the beautiful part about love is that it's not anything without pain. Because pain is the base for our reality. And what's extracted from that has to be love. It has to be. So then we get the construction and the breakdown of my question of life. If your pain is the baseline of your reality, that equals an emotion, something that we cannot control, something that we undergo as individuals, as human beings on this planet, something that we cannot control, something that is brought upon to us through any sort of action, a trauma, an experience with an individual that you love, or something that you wished for, that you got and you finally achieved and it was stripped from you. That level of pain is something that happened to you. You didn't create it. And maybe you can say that because of your attachment to something, pain was a byproduct of what was going to come from that. But I refuse to accept that because that's when we get into our anomaly, which I'll describe in a second. Pain is the baseline emotion for our life. So now it's an emotion, something that is uncontrolled, that happens to us without our voluntary acceptance. We didn't want it to happen to us, but it did. So then what happens after that? We bring ourselves to our thoughts. A sense of unworthiness can come from an experience of pain. Pain of getting broken up with and discarded from your community. You might feel like you're unworthy now because the pain, this emotion that brings up every sort of insecurity you've ever experienced in your life, comes to that moment, which then creates your thought, which is, I'm not worthy enough to be involved with this person or be in love with anyone. I'm an unloved person. I don't deserve love. But we have control over that. That's something we like to believe and we like to say out loud, that we do control our thoughts. But these we don't control. This does not need to be your reality. But what happens is that when you decide to accept what happens from your emotion that becomes your thought, it allows you to bleed into your last part of the sequence, which is your action, which tends to be some sort of form of sabotage. It can be other actions, of course, as well, but sabotage in the sense that all of the pride and all the work that you work towards, if you don't feel worthy enough, you went through some sort of horrible experience that causes you to feel like you don't deserve something, when you get brought to the test of asking yourself whether I believe it or not, to do it again, you'll sabotage it because you don't feel worthy of it because of all the pain you went through. So then your action will just be the thing that solidifies the wiring. Yes, we have control over our thoughts and our actions. Yes, we control what we output in this life, but guess what? Our conscious mind doesn't decide it, our subconscious does. And how does the subconscious get wired? By actions that we repeat over and over again, by thoughts that we repeat in our mind over and over again. The action solidifies the wiring, which then reignites the entire process all over again when the next emotion comes into play. We get to provide a happier state of life if we continue to do better things for ourselves. Emotions of positivity will come flooding to us. We will manifest that because of our positively oriented actions that bring back more positive emotions. It's inevitable. But guess what? If you continue this cycle in the negative sense, your subconscious wiring will then bring you back to more optimal pains of emotion, emotional pains, which will then bring and solidify those thoughts, which will then lead you to more catastrophic actions, just taking you away from control of your life. So this is the formula that I want to follow for the rest of my life, that I believe every single person should at least adopt, and understanding that no matter what you go through, no matter what happens to you, anything that is brought upon you as an individual, you are in full control of how you think about the situation. And it's not to say just think positively about it and just completely eradicate the idea that this doesn't matter, I can not feel pain, I'm happy, and put a fake smile on. It's more so about understanding that the thoughts that arose from that emotion aren't real. They aren't you. You actually aren't unworthy. You're not undeserving of love. Like, who says that? You said that. Nobody came and told you you're unworthy. You might have gotten hurt by someone that didn't love you as much as you loved them, but guess what? That doesn't mean you as an individual, as a soul that's oriented by love, is unworthy. So then what happens when you get tested the next time that you get a chance to find love or find someone that you actually have a connection with, you'll sabotage that because why would that person want to be with me? Why would they even consider falling in love with a man that's unworthy of love? Because all I do is bring pain. So I just solidify every single time I get through pain, I'm unworthy of it. And then I end up just sabotaging myself over and over again and bringing myself to solidify the wiring of my individual self. The anomaly I brought up before, quickly I want to touch on this, but not too long. Those are individuals out there who believe they are outside the rule. They are the discounts outside the rule that believe they can dictate this, to not say this is the exact definition of life, but they believe that they have a higher purpose that doesn't surround themselves about anything besides themselves. They are the pinnacle of their existence, which, hey man, I'm going to erase that because it's not true. The anomaly, those people need help. And that's why we call them psychopaths. Those who avoid meaning and attachment and care for anything. They are the people that put themselves above all their short-term and desires. The anomaly that discounts this rule is a man or woman that I've found myself to be at times. That I thought, because I have worked so hard for myself, I've put so much energy into this life, I've given so much to this world. I've done everything I could. I've given what was my best at the time. Why haven't I received anything that I wanted? Why am I not getting what I want now? Why am I still wanting certain outcomes? Why am I not having enough money? Why don't I have my partner yet? Why don't I have the easiest things? Why do I not feel good right now? These are questions that people go through every single moment, but they understand that things come with a price. In order to get the money, I need to go through sacrifice. In order to feel the love, I need to offer myself accordingly, appropriately. But the short-term pleasure, the hedonistic people that focus on short-term pleasures and desires, they are the anomaly to this, which then brings me to my point here. If this is the condition of the existence, who controls and what dictates this? Why am I able to even say this as the reality? I'm an individual with a mind just like yours, so you can conceptualize this. There's no difference between how I'm able to say this and you're able to understand it. But who created it? God, the ultimate form, or your ultimate control? Because you can rewire yourself perfectly. You can conduct every single perfect habit under some sort of moral law that I'm not aware of that's above anything. You can be the ideal perfect individual. You can be. You can. There's a possibility for it always. But I think the possibility must represent something. Because again, like we said, love is the highest attainment of what we're chasing towards. We want ultimate control. We want to be working towards having full control of ourselves, but we don't have control over what can happen to us. We can only control what we can do now. We can do an action that will lead to the most optimal emotion that is directed towards where we want to go. We can get to a state as close as possible to an ultimate sense of control, a pinnacle above what you think is best for you. Because your identity changes, your perspective changes, your emotions, your values about how you perceive the world and your friendships and your quality of people, and all of that is subject to change based on your personal experience. So what the hell do you know? Why do you get to dictate the fact that you think you know what's best for you when you don't even know what's best for you tomorrow, never mind for the rest of your life? There must be a moral law that we follow that's above all. Whether or not that is God or not, we are always still figuring out that answer. And the people that do believe fully can understand and live in this identity that there is a pinnacle above them that we all work towards and live under, and that would be God. Someone who has his best interest into us, the all-knowing and all-loving sense, that knows no matter what we do wrong as a sinful man or woman, we have the ability to surrender to something greater than us, so that all of our wrongdoings are not for nothing, and that he can take on the bearing and the responsibility of all of our hardships, and no matter what we go through, and no matter how hard things get, we can fall back on a fatherly figure that loves us indefinitely. Why can't you be that person for yourself? Why can't your subconscious be so programmed, so perfectly wired, that no matter what you go through, no matter how many hardships or heartbreaks you go through, you can save yourself at the end of the day? And that's a great question. But that's why I believe the more you love yourself, you get away from what's really at the pinnacle. Pain. Something that you cannot control. You are not pain. You are outside of pain. Pain is around us. Pain is within our mind. Pain is in the energetic field. The quantum reality is pain. It's something that we don't get to decide. You have to admit, if you don't admit that, then you are living in a false reality. Pain is unavoidable. God may be unavoidable. Because ultimate control seems like the ideal candidate. It seems like the most It seems like the best chance for any entrepreneur, for any individual, for any person really achieving and wanting success in their life in any form. They want that ultimate control. They want to be able to say, I did it all myself. I am the smartest. I am the strongest. I'm the most all-knowing. The God complex. But if you cannot set yourself aside and understand that there are things greater than you, greater than your purpose, greater than what all this is for, there's things in this life that are beyond us, and they're worth exploring. And the humility that it takes to accept the fact that you don't need to have ultimate control, that there is something that potentially does. It's a question, it's not an answer. But I would love to hear your feedback in the comments, and I would love to hear some debate and proper ontological arguments. That'd be awesome. I would love to have some existential questions with everybody in the comments. Please leave your thoughts and anything I did wrong here. Please, we're all learning in this journey. I'm sharing my knowledge and my understanding of life. You can take something from this video and apply it to the project film of your life. Thank you. I'll catch you for the next one.